Hello and welcome to Religion Anatomy. Why do people pray? The science, the psychology, and the deepest need in human history. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is on their knees. A mother in Lagos is praying for her sick child. A soldier in a trench is praying to survive the night. A student in Mumbai is praying before an exam. A man in a Texas hospice, days from death, is praying because it is the only thing left he knows how to do. And here is the number that should stop you cold. According to the most comprehensive global research available, over 73% of people on this planet pray at least once a month. That is more than 5 billion human beings across every language, every culture, every century of recorded history, doing the same thing, reaching out to something, hoping something reaches back. The question isn't whether prayer is real in some supernatural sense. The question is why, across all of human history, in every civilization ever discovered, people have never stopped doing it. And what science, psychology, and neuroscience have found when they finally started looking closely at the answer will genuinely surprise you. Before the why, the scale demands acknowledgement. Because this is the most statistically dominant behavior in the history of our species, and almost nobody discusses it in those terms. India has the highest absolute number of daily prayer participants in the world, with over 1 billion people, 71% of the population, praying every single day. Built in Indonesia tops the proportional list, with 95% of its population praying daily. More than 4 in 10 Americans, 44%, report praying at least once a day. An additional 23% pray weekly or several times a month. Globally, 53% of people say they have personally experienced what they describe as an answered prayer. And even as secularization spreads across the Western world, even as church membership falls, religious identification declines, and none becomes the fastest growing religious category in multiple countries. Prayer persists. The share of Americans who pray daily has dropped 14 percentage points since 2007, yet 44% still do so every single day. People who no longer believe in organized religion still pray. Atheists in crisis still pray. People who would not describe themselves as religious still find themselves in moments of grief or terror or profound gratitude, speaking to something they cannot name. This is not a theological fact. It is a documented human behavioral fact. And it demands a deeper explanation than people are religious. What neuroscience actually found when it looked inside a praying brain. In the 1990s, neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Newberg at Thomas Jefferson University began doing something nobody had done before, scanning human brains during active prayer using SPECT imaging, technology that measures blood flow across brain regions in real time. What he found was not what critics of religion expected, and not quite what believers expected either. When Franciscan nuns engaged in centering prayer, SPECT scans revealed increased activity in the frontal lobes, the region associated with focused attention, concentration, planning, and self-control. Simultaneously, there was decreased activity in the parietal lobe, the region responsible for spatial orientation and the sense of where the self ends and the external world begins. Science Direct, that second finding, is the extraordinary one. The part of the brain that tells you where you stop, the boundary between self and world, goes quiet during deep prayer. The subjective experience of that quieting is what mystics across every tradition have described for thousands of years, a sense of oneness, of dissolution of the ego, of being part of something larger. Neuroscience didn't debunk it. Neuroscience found it in the data. Long-term prayer practitioners show measurably thicker prefrontal cortices, the same region associated with emotional regulation, rational decision-making, and resilience under stress. Prayer also stimulates the release of serotonin and dopamine, the brain's mood-stabilizing and reward-signaling chemicals. The more consistently someone prays, the longer-lasting and deeper these neurological changes become. The brain does not distinguish between talking to God and talking to a person you deeply trust and love. The neural signature is virtually identical. Whether or not there is anyone listening, the brain responds as if there is, and it responds with measurable, replicable calm. Setting aside theology entirely, psychology has identified specific, documented functions that prayer serves for the human mind, not one reason. 5 distinct ones, each supported by peer-reviewed research. First, emotional processing. Prayer serves as an active procedure, not a passive act, that helps people reflect on their strengths, shortcomings, and relationships. It functions as a structured practice for emotional regulation, offering a framework for processing grief, fear, and gratitude that reduces the psychological weight of carrying those emotions without expression. Second, collaborative problem solving. A 2024 study published in the journal Religion, Brain, and Behavior, using qualitative interviews and quantitative surveys, found that people use prayer as a form of collaborative problem solving. Actively working through practical difficulties in their lives by articulating them in the context of prayer, gaining clarity through the act of structured expression. Third, control in uncontrollable situations. Humans have a documented psychological need for agency, the feeling that their actions matter. When facing situations entirely beyond their control, terminal illness, war, disaster, the absence of any available action produces severe anxiety and helplessness. Prayer restores a sense of action. It is something to do when there is nothing to do. Whether or not it changes the external situation, it demonstrably changes the internal one. Fourth, mental health protection. Research shows that prayer enhances emotional resilience, helping individuals cope with stress, anxiety, loneliness, trauma, hopelessness, depression, and even suicidal ideation among people who engage in regular spiritual practice. Better psychological outcomes have been achieved when traditional psychotherapy integrates spiritual and community-based strategies into its treatment protocols. Fifth, connection to something larger. Some studies indicate that spiritual forms of meditation and prayer may have a similar or even greater influence on mental health than secular mindfulness-based therapies addressing anxiety, depression, and stress through a mechanism that secular practices cannot fully replicate: the perception of relationship with a power or presence that transcends the individual self. Intellectual honesty requires this section, and it is important. The placebo effect may play a role in some of the observed benefits of prayer. Individuals who believe in the power of prayer may experience greater relief from stress and anxiety simply because they expect positive outcomes, rather than because of the physiological effects of the practice itself. This raises genuine questions about how much of the benefit is due to the practice versus psychological expectation, making it difficult to isolate specific neurobiological effects. This is a legitimate scientific caution. Expectations shape outcomes. The brain is notoriously susceptible to the power of belief. If you pray and expect comfort, Your brain may generate comfort regardless of any external response to the prayer. But here is the honest counter to the counter. The placebo effect is a real effect. If prayer reliably produces measurable reductions in anxiety, depression, and stress, whether through supernatural response or neurological self-regulation, or the simple power of structured attention, then the mechanism matters less than the outcome for the billions of people experiencing it. The brain does not care why it is calm. It only cares that it is. Here is what we know, verified in 2026. More than 5 billion people pray at least once a month. Brain imaging shows measurable neurological changes during prayer. Changes in the exact regions associated with attention, self-boundary, mood, and stress. Psychology has documented at least 5 distinct functions that prayer serves for the human mind, all supported by peer-reviewed research. Even as organized religion declines in the West, the act of prayer persists across the non-religious, the agnostic, and the atheist in moments of extremity. And the brain responds to prayer the same way it responds to deep, trusted human conversation, with calm, with the sense of being heard. Whether prayer is communion with the divine, or the most ancient form of self-regulation the human species has ever developed, or both simultaneously, the evidence is clear on one thing. Humans have always prayed, and the data suggests they always will, because the need that drives it to speak into the silence and believe something listens may be the most human need of all. We want your honest answer in the comments. Have you ever prayed even once during a moment when you weren't sure you believed? And what were you reaching for in that moment? Comfort, connection, control, or something you still can't put into words? If this video made you think differently about something you thought you already understood, hit like and subscribe right now, because this channel goes deeper than the headlines into the questions that actually shape how billions of people live. We'll see you in the next one.